Hey, Jeremy. Welcome to
Hey,
Real
Rock,
Fridays without Rick Rock yet.
we're gonna get real, and then Rock's gonna come in and mess it all up.
Hey, there you
See?
go. Happy
You
Real
know,
Fridays, Rick.
good
What
deal. Did
filter
you
is
guys already
that?
do the introduction? We're live, right?
You had, we're live. You've got your filter on, making you look at least 5 years younger. Look at that. You look great today.
Are you talking about me? Look 5 years younger? Thank you. There's no filters on
New
this one here.
phone?
This
New
is
phone,
just
who dis?
no, this is just
You
me
have a new skincare routine?
me looking me, me looking just youthful and vibrant as always, man. This is great. This is the best way to start a Friday.
Where
This
are
is
you?
great, man. How are you guys doing, man? This week, I tell you, I was reflecting on just how unprecedented the time is right now. Internally we had emails just going all around, the non-permanent sort of resident um, aliens that are here in the United States. That and the loss of access to Title One and Title Two funding um, through FHA. It's just unbelievable. And I keep on thinking to myself, we have lived through multiple disruptions and change within this business. And every single time there is a massive resurgence and shakeup, both in market share at the top and in growth. Like, 20, I posted about this earlier where, 2020, or really the year 2000 through 2006, regulatory changes and changes federally created a massive demand and vacuum for mortgages. So there's massive growth. There was contraction in 2010 to 2015 with TRID and a lot of the introductory regulatory changes. But now we're creating another vacuum. We're creating another environment where more than likely there's going to be a massive growth in originations over the next 3 to 4 years. Um, but it's different this time. You know, um, I don't know. I feel like we're at the precipice of significant disruption, and and now I don't think there's any question that the GSEs are going to get privatized, or at least that will start to that process will start sometime in this first term. But I just feel like there's just so much disruption happening right now, um, that there's going to be a real market share and market shift in the industry across lenders and across technology solutions. Um, I don't know.
I
I'm,
mean,
I'm kind of speechless.
one of the things I've always, or that I've heard, is sort of a differentiator for who wins and loses in this industry is who manages change best. What's your change management structure? How do you make changes, and how do you address changes? So this actually is just what you might think of as like prime time or the major leagues of change, right? So like when it was compliance, that was maybe 10 years, more than 10 years ago now. It's 15 years ago now. The compliance was the change management. How do you change along with the compliance changes? Now it seems like it's probably more product liquidity. Like, how are you changing with where your loans are funded, how they're funded, how quickly liquidity options will come to fill in some of the vacuum that's created that you're talking about, Rick? Because I think like all the changes this week were relative to FHA guys, and we assume soon Fannie and Freddie guys, to your point. And then so like if you don't have a good change management strategy, um, you're in trouble. But you probably have a decent enough one, to your point, because you've had to deploy it now every 2 to 3 years for the last dozen years. Like I was thinking of COVID.
Yeah, you have a lot of practice at this point, hopefully, right?
Yeah, the thing at Rocket during COVID was I think it was a 6 p.m. standing call every single day. And the call grew and grew to have more senior leaders on it. But like,
yeah, those were the days. Even I made it on there.
Would you say even I made it on there? Yeah. But like, and so I would assume, Rick, what we're seeing is like, how good are you at managing change? And then above all that, you've got whatever happens in the market. You were talking about transactions and the rate environment. And so, yeah, I mean, I've been pretty comfortable with the assumption. If a CEO is asking me, I've been pretty comfortable with the exit is happening and rates are going down. Those are the two things I'm pretty comfortable with. I've been far down, but rates are going down by the end of the year, and Fannie and Freddie are exiting in less than 3. Like I've been pretty comfortable with that assumption for the last probably 2 months.
Think about the implications of that, though. But every time we think that rates are going to go down, they end up going up, or they end up holding steady. And I'm actually with Diego on this. I think rates are going to hold steady at 6.5%, but but that's based on a number of assumptions, and there's certainly assumptions that if true, rates could go into the high 5s. Based on real economic turbulence and real recessionary turbulence within that impact wages, that impact unemployment. At some point, something's going to buckle. That'll jeopardize sort of the rate environment. And but even that, what's that?
No, sorry, I wasn't sure if you had frozen, so I was just going to jump in.
Oh,
you can finish your thought.
Well, my thought is that, like, I was talking to one lender, $1 billion lender, and the guy and the leader is looking to sell, and what's interesting is, and I said to him, I said, well, why wouldn't you wait? Just wait it out. I mean, if rates drop, you're even half a point, our pipelines will surge by 30-40%. So why not wait? And he's like, Rick, it costs money to close more loans. At some point, it costs us more money to support the growth. And then I have to staff up, and then I don't know if I'm going to staff up correctly. And then when the rate environment sort of gets turbulent again and pulls back, I got to lay more people off, and I got to time the market out. And the last time I tried to do that, I lost a lot of money in 2023, trying to predict the market as to how to grow and scale.
Wow,
And that's
headcount.
Well, yeah, but a lot of most companies still don't believe AI is a thing. They still don't think that AI is going to have the kind of scalable impact that I know it will have, because I know at companies like NFM and companies like Cross Country and others, that in essence, when it comes to scale, you're going to be able to scale so much more volume. At NFM, we're planning on scaling the volume, almost not quite doubling, but close to doubling our production, but by only increasing our overhead count by maybe 20%. Whereas where it was.
Where do you think that volume comes from? Because there aren't a ton of houses available. We can't build them this year. We're going to build them, but we're not going to build them in 2025. Or what I should say is we'll start building them in 2025. They won't hit the market. So it sounds like what you're saying is refinances. That seems competitive. That seems like a really competitive market.
You can fill up your pipeline. We had this conversation a couple of weeks ago on the show of, like, you can fill up your pipelines with buyer leads, but are they just leads? The inventory picture is getting a little better. I think I shared it on the show maybe 2 weeks ago, and I wrote a post about it yesterday on LinkedIn. But yeah, I mean, the available housing inventory is getting a lot better in some markets, a little better in most markets. The west and south regions, if you just quantify like the quadrants, have over 30% more inventory than this time last year. So there's some housing, but how much of it's in the affordable bracket, how much of it's in the right locations remains to be seen. But purchase pipelines are getting better for sure. Pipelines, right? It's just that was what Rick said, is 30-40% more in the pipeline. There's a lot of qualified buyers, just not qualified for.
What I'm confused by on the inventory stuff, Brock, is, and I feel like I'm always insecure about this guy's name, but that guy, like Mike Delpreet, is it Delpreet or Delpreet?
Delpreet. I've heard him speak 20 times. I'm not really sure. Delpreet, I think.
All right, so I'm going to go with Delpreet because I think that's probably right. So he posted a newsletter. His newsletter is great, obviously. 3 days ago, he posted the average transactions per real estate agent And what I thought was weird is the number he had for total transactions in 2024 was a lot lower than I thought it was. So he has 3.4 million transactions.
I'll give you a real
scroll down.
time screen
Yeah,
share.
scroll down. Right there. Look at 2024. I think if you asked me, and I was looking at like Fannie Mae's numbers on the housing outlook for Fannie Mae, I would have assumed it was like 4.1 or something like that.
I was going to say that too, over 4 million.
So I was just surprised to see 3.7 and 3.4 over the last 2 years. And I can't imagine 2025 being any different than 2023, 2024. So those numbers are accurate.
Yeah, I mean, most of the projections are around like what 3.9 for this year, like between all of these, like the middle, maybe 2023 plus a little better than 2024.
Okay, and so he has all transactions. You have to assume that, and we've seen different numbers on this, but the economic in Dallas, they said over 33% cash transactions, maybe as high as 40. So you have to assume, are we just lopping off almost 1 million transactions?
Yeah.
To say they go cash.
I think that's about the right way to think about it. I'll stop my share. It's kind of annoying, but no, I mean, I think that's how to think about it. 3.94 million homes, 900 or 1 million in cash, maybe more. I mean, 33% would be more than 1 million, right? That
doesn't leave much.
Depends who the buyers are, of course. Yeah.
So I guess what I'm saying is I understand what that IMB CEO is saying, to be like, I know that I can
3 million purchase loans to fight for.
What would I need to do? What would I need to do to fight for them? Yeah, exactly. Anyway.
Well, I think the number is every 0.25%, or maybe it's 0.5% that the rates drop, another 500,000 to 700,000 transactions. It impacts the market that much, right? So I think that's the presumption that if there's really probably three assumptions behind it. One is market share gains purely by taking other loan officers or acquisitions. 2, increase in refinance activity, and 3, increase in purchase activity for those who can afford it. There's going to be a segment of the population that even in a low rate environment, they're not going to be able to afford a home, right? They can't pick up the 5, 10, 20%, whatever it is. And but for those who do have the money and they're just waiting to see the market, when the rates drop to right around 6 or high 5s, I think you're going to see a lot of investor DSCR and a lot of non-owner occupied sort of transactions, investor transactions, and people pulling the trigger who can. I don't know why. I'm not sure what happened.
I'm going to give you the mic. Yeah, I'm not a political mic.
I literally thought I lost you guys. I was like, how am I the only one live right now? But you know what I mean? No, so that's what we're. I mean, because we see it. I mean, even last September, the 2 weeks when rates dropped, we saw our purchase transactions just swell in that month, and then despite inventory sort of constraints, no single lender. Well, this isn't entirely true, but no single lender is that large to some degree where. This isn't true. I'm not going to say it. But
talking yourself out of your point is a strong move.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, the route in down markets, lenders can always grow, right? Because you can always expand in markets where you're not and pick up where your existing footprint drops, right? Just by entering a brand new market. Because most lenders just simply aren't penetrated in any kind of uniform kind of way. Even NFM's production makeup is pretty concentrated across, maybe a half a dozen markets around the country. Maybe a few more, but for the most part, it's a completely open map, open field. So if we pick up production in Idaho and Northern California and Colorado and so on, it's all going to be additive to what we're doing, regardless of the market, regardless of where the rates are.
But yeah, I mean, that's how almost all my conversations go. I mean, probably self-selecting lenders that are the ones talking to Newsip, but it's basically to expand purchase geography and or purchase strategy is the conversations I have all day, every day. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's kind of like retail plus DTC, like the hybrid, loan officer conversation that has been common is, that's how you grow, is you launch new markets, you find new lead funnels.
The AI conversation is interesting because I'm sure everybody's talking about Bill Gates' comments, how something to the effect of like 60% of jobs are going to get absorbed or taken over by AI over the next, I want to say it was over the next like 10 years. It was a pretty short horizon. And I genuinely believe that. Like, people keep saying AI is not going to take jobs. That is completely factually incorrect. Like, AI is absolutely going to reduce jobs. AI is going to eliminate loan officer assistants and processors and auditors and many back-end compliance functions. It's going to consolidate those efforts around fewer humans, because AI is going to take it. AI is going to shoulder much of that analysis.
I've been burnt in the past by being too pro-technology, too technologist forward. I think the thing that I always overlook is that function or that task being taken over may not result in the person being removed from the organization. And I think like what we're going to keep doing is we're just going to keep paying people to do stuff. It's just the stuff is going to change. So I'm not sure that I think.
It'll be a different job, right? It'll be a more technical job. It'll be feeding the robots, running the robots.
The only problem with that contention, though, Jeremy, is that you get fairly low to middle skilled activities, right? Doc collectors, LOAs, people are calling consumers to say, hey, don't forget to send us these documents, those documents, these documents. Those are pretty low to mid skilled functions, right? And all those low to mid skill functions are going to get pushed to AI. So you'd have to really elevate your skill level through training and education in order to perform a more sophisticated task that's not as repeatable, that AI is likely to take over. And mortgage companies are not good at training at all and developing employees at all. So I don't know. I mean, I think maybe in the short term, there'll be a middle step where a function will as AI sort of takes over these functions, people will get displaced to take over function. But I think in 10 years, it's going to be so complete, the conversion, that I just don't see it. People are going to lose their jobs. I don't see how it's any other way without, some kind of advancement or investment in their skill level.
I understand what you're saying. I mean, we saw it at Rocket a little bit where there would be an automation that eliminated a task or a role, but almost always that person was given an opportunity for like 3 other things. Like, it was like, now some of those things, to your point, may not meet their skill set, but you could always become a salesperson. At Rocket, at least, and I'm betting at a lot of mortgage companies, it's like, hey, we don't need your role. You want to step up and be an LO, though? We could do that. And I think that's an example where AI might actually help create more loan officers because you can use it as an assist to step up.
Fewer operations. Fewer operations humans, I think, is fair. But
another example is like, I haven't seen a ton of
keeps going of like, okay, what else do people need to do?
Yeah. We haven't seen a ton of investment on the servicing side. We've seen more recently, but historically we haven't. So what happens? A lot of people from the origination side are offered jobs on the servicing side when the job's automated on the origination side. The other thing I've been saying a lot lately is we still don't do interesting products. So you can always take a processor or an underwriter and be like, okay, now we're going to do renovation. Now we're going to do construction. Now we're going to do condos. We suck at condos still. Now, part of that is the GSE guides, but part of that is also we just don't do it well. We don't look at it right. And
manufactured condos, all that.
Yeah, manufactured houses. Like, there are so many opportunities. And if what you said is true, that there's a vacuum that may or may not be filled by private capital, least in the short run, till private capital gets scared again, we may have people be able to jump in with non-agency products of varying types, state agency products. I know a bunch of national lenders who are still hesitant to do all 50 state agency products because of how nuanced it is. But they'd like to. They usually pick a couple, or a branch manager will talk them into like the big ones. But like, imagine you automate out a processor and then take a team of 10 processors and say, go get us all 50 state agency products. I mean, that's the type of thing I'm referring to when I say, like, where does that job go? Well, it should go to like doing the stuff we're not good at, doing more of it.
What do you think of?
That's my hope. I gave you some. That's all best I could do. Optimism. There you go. You got it.
Do you think that? Let me ask you a question about title. Do you think this market and this administration is pro the way title in essence has been done, or do you think it's pro innovation on the side of title, like the Fannie Mae pilot program, and others to try to reduce the cost of title, or do you think it's more of a kind of business as we've always known it over the last 20 years?
Yeah, I don't think it's a high enough priority to have reached the director's radar quite yet. I think there are higher priorities that the director's focusing on, like day one, day two type of thing. And I think eventually, specifically for FHFA and the GSEs, title alternative programs like what you're asking will rise to then be on Director Pulte's radar and eventually become a decision. And maybe that happens quickly in the next couple of weeks, but it will eventually happen. And I think what they want, or if I was doing it how I would imagine, is they probably want the GSEs to be as clean and straightforward with their products and programs as possible, to make them as good an investment, move them out of conservatorship as possible. So the more complex, the more murky, the more wonky something is, and a lot of innovation falls in those categories oftentimes, it's a threat potentially to just a clean, clear message, a clean, clear balance sheet, and exit. So if it was my guess, Rick, I don't think they need to make like a public declaration on the value of title insurance as an industry if they don't want to. They could, but if they don't want to, they could just easily say, hey, we're just trying to clean things up. And the more complex and the more nuanced these pilots are, the more confusing they are to getting these agencies out of conservatorship. So to me, it's actually the stuff that brings complexity. The other question, though, is what does the balance sheet look like? Because they need capital and they want to be investable. And so if it brings in cash, then it needs to be looked at as well, because they may want cash from the balance sheet. I don't think the title alternatives do that. I don't think they bring in cash to the GSEs. So I think they're going to get threatened or eliminated simply because of complexity and the fact that they don't bring in a ton of cash to the balance sheet. And those two things are big priorities if you're going to exit conservatorship. So I would assume that title alternatives are not acceptable on loan deliveries by the end of the year at the latest, probably by the end of the summer is my guess. And I have no inside information on that. I'm just saying, just logically, based on what we've seen. So I think title is going to remain relatively consistent from a GSE loan delivery perspective. I think there's a lot of innovations in title that are related to automation and AI and data, the use of data. I mean, I haven't really made sense of the CoreLogic rebrand to Totality, but I can tell you, like, using data in innovative ways is like their whole thing, and they do play a role in title data in a variety of ways. And so there is something going on with property data, land record data, title data that is going to be classified as innovation. I just don't think it's going to have anything to do with the GSEs, and I don't think it's going to have anything to do with loan deliveries.
What do you think is going to happen with other technology segments of sort of the flow, right? Do you think how is POS, how is Blend and the POS market evolving? Is that pretty much
Brock?
I mean, what's that?
It's just jokingly shifting that question to Brock, so I didn't have to answer it.
Yeah, Same as Jeremy. Don't want to answer. No, I think no, I think it's like anything. I think it'll be like the not very good POS systems are going to be nuked because there's so much tech getting wrapped around it that does POS like stuff, right? But then, but I'm sure Blend and 2 to 3 others will take the bull by the horns and lead innovation in that area, right? I mean, that's what you expect to see from companies of that caliber. I don't have any inside information. We actually asked the head of revenue at Blend to come on this show in a couple of weeks. That'll be cool.
Well, that's a perfect tee up. We'll just ask.
If he's listening, please do. But because we want to ask you questions. But no, that's what I've heard a lot. And I mean, but there's a lot of pre-work happening. I've always believed that there's like a few too many systems here, right? Like, and so it probably bleeds together with CRM conversations, LOS conversations, all of these conversations. Plenty of lenders that don't really use a POS, right? They work out of an LOS. So just depends.
I've been surprised at how resilient POS has been, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I've been surprised. I'm obviously missing something about loan production because the POS has not just been resilient, like people are building new ones. Like what? Because to me, it's like, where does the data live and how quickly can I get it to my decision engine? And if you're a servicer, then it already lives in your system. If you have a CRM, it's already in your system. And Plaid seems to be making a lot of gains on getting bank data in faster, easier, stronger. The verification platforms are essentially doing what a POS could do. So I would assume if there was any consolidation, it would probably be around POS and verification platforms coming together and merging that way to make it even stronger.
POS and CRM, basically.
Correct. Yeah. Well,
I don't even know why the POS segment really even exists, because it strikes me that the LOS platform should have just done this all along.
The other two sides didn't do a good enough job with this specific piece, right?
Yeah, CRM never extended a dynamic workflow for literally taking a 1003. LOS never extended a dynamic workflow for taking a 1003. But for the last 10 years, POS has equaled a digital 1003, right? I mean, that's what it is. So once you solve for a lot of that in other ways, meaning I already have the data, I'm refreshing the data, or I'm literally just asking you, is this still true? That's not anymore a POS function as much. It's just like, hey, is this data still true? Is this data still true? Put in your Plaid username and password and let's go. So I do think it's a threat. I mean, I think you're right to say like POS is being threatened, but you still got to take an application. And so,
it's really interesting. It gives you kind of an idea of the constraints of being an innovator, because it almost challenges the concept of like, create a minimum viable product, right? So you start very narrowly, but then you become an expert at that narrow particular path, and then it becomes a either lack of resources or maybe lack of leadership and lack of market understanding of how to go outside those lanes, right? Of how to actually go outside those lanes.
Here's the way I started to think about it, and I haven't really fleshed out this theory, so I'll just give you one of Jeremy's half-baked theories. I wonder if there's not enough upside. Like a lot of things I ran into when I was early in my innovation stages in my career, like when I first became a team leader for innovation, one of the things I ran into was like what I wanted to exist or what I believed should exist versus what made sense to invest in. Like, what's the upside? Like, you could make this awesome thing, but if it doesn't actually get you all that much, then the devil I know is better than the devil I don't, because the lift is just not there. And I think our industry has operated that way for a really long time. It's like, oh, that sounds like a great idea, but there's just not enough on the back end of all that work to make it happen. A lot of mortgage companies don't think they can differentiate on a digital experience. So they're not going to invest in a POS because they just don't believe it's a differentiator. Now, we can disagree with that, and we could like model out numbers to say how it becomes worth it, but that core belief is enough to keep people be like, that's not my differentiator, or I can't make it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't compete.
Potter, I'm going to pull something out. I'm going to share my screen for a second. I was looking through a couple different mortgage CRM websites to see how they sort of talk about and think about what to use them for, what to use other people for. ADM is I'm pretty good friends with these guys. They have a really clear list. Total Expert also has a pretty good list. And I imagine Relku and a handful of others do, but this was the first one I found that kind of made my point, which is like all the things you use ADM for. There's a lot, and they've added use cases other CRMs don't have, right? To some extent, but they tell you which LOSs they play nice with. They tell you which POSs they play nice with, recommend 3. And then, it goes deeper and deeper and deeper. Total Expert has a list like this. NewZip's actually on it as a pre-built integration. Would love to get on ADMs, would love to get on a few others, Relkus, and maybe a few others, Velocify or whatever. But I think this is a cool way to think about it, is in what cases does the CRM drive you to someone else? And the answer is the top 2 are LOS and POS. We knew that, but it's the CRM isn't trying to go the direction of the POS. It's actually recommending you sign one of these POSs and integrate it with them that's pre-built. So that's kind of a cool way to think about it.
Well, I guess the question is a function of, well, your comment was there's so many platforms that are out there, and I think that's born to some degree out of like a philosophical approach when you start a company. It's like NewZip, you started pretty narrowly.
Yeah.
Tie the the realtor, the consumer with the lender to create kind of an inescapable kind of experience, and then the next question is, well, why is it NewZip a CRM? Right. Well, it takes a lot of time and energy and money to do that. Right. Well, you're just adding yet another platform across multiple platforms. Right.
Yeah, exactly. I've had 2 lenders recently ask if we can power, refi communications, refi, real estate data related to refi. It's like, we never thought about refi once because we started it in purchase because we're a real estate company, but we can power all kinds of stuff for refi. Yeah, it is a fun discovery process. That's kind of what startups are. You listen to
one of my favorite. This is a really fascinating conversation because this company is, I think, doing pretty well, but sort of avoided the labeling problem that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And it's a company called Ardley, and Ardley takes portfolio data, bank data usually, but they also do it for servicing portfolios, runs it up against your product and pricing, and then delivers a digital workflow to bring in that refi application. You could easily say, oh, that sounds like a refi point of sale product, but it's so much more than that because they're running active analytics on your portfolio, proactively reaching out to your customers for you, giving them a potential offer, bringing them into a digital workflow with the data you already have as a lender, and then serving up the rest of the process. Like, do you want to apply now? And if you do, we can take you through that too, because you're already with the lender who has all your data. So like, don't worry about it. And to me, like, that is an incredibly powerful tool that doesn't get talked about enough. So when I hear Rick earlier in the show say, well, we're going to bank on a 30% increase in refi, my question that lenders who say that, I always say, well, where are those loans today? Because if you're not servicing them, whoever is running whether it's the vendor or themselves, is running the exact workflow I just described. So get ready. And I think that's kind of the most fun thing to think about in refi for me lately has been, how do you not even become a lead? And Ardley is an example of a partner that can run on your portfolio where your customers don't ever even become a lead for anyone else because you've already proactively run the process. And that's what I would be thinking about if I was the CEO.
It literally is the upcoming servicing wars. It's going to be really the battle for runoff and retention, because think about the amount of money these lenders have paid for the MSRs, and if they have a tremendous amount of runoff, because you'll break even on that on purchasing those MSRs within maybe 2 or 3 years. And if you lose those MSRs in that time period due to refinances, you lose your shirt. That's why a lot of these companies, there's a lot of risk. That's why a lot of companies that are large servicers are trying to invest as much as they can on the retention piece. No, man. I mean, it's gonna get. It really is the new battle, or the new warfare landscape is going to be, and it's going to be getting after the consumer, but it obviously is who owns that, who can get in front of the consumer as early as he possibly can, which
Up funnel.
which is top of funnel. I mean, it really is. I mean, but
keeping them out of other people's funnel is a fun way to think about it, though. I like that.
Yeah, keeping them out of other people's funnel. Yes.
Keeping them in your funnel, right? Keeping them in your ecosystem.
I have another half-baked theory that I'll throw out there, which is there was a time at Rocket where I was working with FICO a little bit, not like under agreement or anything, just like talking to a friend of mine at FICO. And they were thinking a lot about resiliency. Which FICO scores are more resilient? You could have 2 680s, 2 720s, but one is more resilient than the other based on other attributes. And they were thinking about like credit resiliency. And that theory has always stuck with me. That word in particular was pretty catchy to me at the time. And what you just described is there's probably some thought we could put into how do you make your A, business, B, leads, C, process more resilient against threats from the Rockets, the lead by companies, the generators.
We've always used like the metaphor or buzzword, whatever, of like, you can play defense and you can play offense, but like start by playing defense on the clients you already have, the leads you already have. And that's, wrapping the real estate solution around it, wrapping the data solution around it, home search, all these things that we can do in purchase. Refi, it's a little different. I mean, I think that's where like platforms like Ardly shine, where it's like just pre-do all the work. They don't even reach another funnel. They don't even know they're in a funnel. They're not really. They're not.
And it's such a commodity. Yeah, and it's such a commodity that you can show that they got your best price. Like that's the other thing is like you might have some people who be like, oh, I need to shop. It's like for a Fannie Freddie refi, go ahead. There's not that much anymore that's different. Interesting.
We should have Nate on here from Ardly. Now that I think about it,
let's invite him. I'm going to share that document where we can add some people, because the CEO of Optimal Blue wants to be on our show, which we need to schedule him. I'm trying to get Spencer Raskoff to get on our show. That'll be a big win. To talk about real estate tech and his ventures. And I want to talk to him about just the equity share part. I wouldn't mind having him and maybe even Crib Equity on just to talk about how.
Well, I'm all about shared equity as a challenge to PMI. So maybe we should have a PMI person on too and say like, what's the outlook for you? We could do a couple things. All right. Good to talk to you, Rick. Good to talk to you, Brock. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Brock. Later. Hey, Brock, for the conference in Maine, is Jeremy coming? Are you gonna come for the conference in Maine?
Why are you asking me if Jeremy's coming? Jeremy's right here.
Well, I know.
What date is that? April 16th or something?
Yeah.
I will. I cannot confirm live. I will confirm though. Now that it's getting close.
You can stay with Brock and I. Brock or myself. One or two.
You got like an Airbnb.
We only got 2 hotel rooms, so yeah.
All right. I'll figure it out. I'll let you guys know.
All right.
Take care.
Good deal, guys.
Good weekend, guys.
Thanks.
Yeah.